you tend to start out your studying by opening your notes or your book and reviewing it? We've all done this. But did you know that research suggests it's far more effective to actually be tested on material rather than simply reviewing it or restudying it? There are different ways that you can go about testing yourself. You may, for example, be familiar with quizzing apps that you can get, like the app called Quizlet. You could also just use the good old-fashioned method of flashcards, where you don't flip over the flashcard until you've at least tried to think of the answer on your own first. These are all examples of good methods of testing yourself, which will generally be more effective than just reviewing or restudying the information. But research also suggests that some methods of testing yourself can be more effective than others. So one of the things that research suggests is that if you have to generate information on your own to a greater extent, you'll tend to show an even greater benefit of testing. So one way you can do this, for example, is to try to explain the concept or idea in your own words to someone else. So if you have a friend or a roommate or a family member who will bear with you and listen to you explain something, that's a great way to test yourself in a way that involves generating a lot of the information on your own, which research suggests should be particularly effective. Another thing you might try, if you don't have anyone who will bear with you and let you explain some concepts to them, is something that my colleagues and I like to call the letter to grandma. And so for this exercise, what you do is you simply write down in your notebook or on a piece of paper, you start to write out a letter to your grandmother where you're trying to explain this concept or idea in terms that grandma can understand. This is a very simple way, if you happen to be in a quiet library or a quiet place where you don't want to explain something out loud, it's a very simple way that you can test yourself through having to generate on your own a lot of the material. Be sure to also give yourself some feedback after testing yourself. You want to check on which answers you got right and which answers you may have gotten wrong, or which answers could have perhaps been more complete. So be sure to go ahead, do a targeted review, and look up the answers in your notes or book once you're done testing yourself. Another way to incorporate testing into your repertoire of study strategies is to capitalize on your devices. So for example, did you know that you can actually use your calendar function, whether it's on your smartphone, your tablet device, or even your computer, to prompt you with test questions periodically? All you have to do is type in a particular question on your material and have it prompt you at a time when you know you can handle being prompted. So maybe at a time when you know you'll just be sitting and watching TV, you can have your device prompt you with a question, just so that you have to think about the answer to that question for that moment. You can even have it prompt you a few moments later with feedback on what the answer was. This is another simple way that you can incorporate testing into your repertoire of study strategies. If you're an instructor, you might try things like low-stakes quizzes for your students to give them opportunities for testing. You might also do exercises with your students where you have them explain concepts in their own words, either to each other or in writing for feedback. So remember, being tested leads to more learning than just restudying the material. So rather than simply reviewing your material, try instead to find ways to test yourself. And if you're an instructor, rather than just presenting material, try to find ways to give students practice at either being tested or having to generate information on their own.